Browns fans. Here we are about 2 weeks into, or yeah, 2 weeks into free agency here. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of new faces, and I had to go say goodbye to a couple old faces. Um, you know, very, very quiet free agency, with a couple moves here and there. A couple big moves, I would say. But ever since those big moves, it's been very quiet here in Cleveland, as of last Friday, in the Deshaun Watson trade. We'll start off with the additions. The Browns have only made three free agent signings. It started with the first one was Taven Bryan, defensive tackle out of Jacksonville, former first-round pick. Very good in the pass rush. It's something that the Browns need, and he's going to be a rotational kind of guy. Definitely need depth at that position. But when I think there's only three players currently at that position. Definitely something we need to upgrade either in the draft or with whatever we got left in free agency. Another person we talked about in our last video is Jakeem Grant, kick returner, punt returner specialist. I think a very great and underrated gadget receiver. Kind of can do everything and sweeps. He's definitely got a set of hands on him. Just a lot of speed out there on the outside. He signed for a 3-year, $12.5 million. So they got him wrapped up for a couple years,
which is perfect because we desperately needed a punt and kick returner, and that's gonna be real nice for us.
Right. It's something that the Browns lacked for the last couple. Ever since they got rid of Josh Cribbs, to be completely honest.
It's been a while. Been a while.
They always say that the key to winning football games is winning it in every aspect of the game. Whether it's offense, defense, but I think special teams is a very underrated part of the game.
Well, that cost Green Bay pretty much their season this past year. Look at it that way, man.
Yeah, special teams is, it should be your routine guys out there. They go out there, punt the ball, they kick the ball, return the ball. It should be pretty routine where it's not that drastic if nothing happens, which is kind of what you want. You don't want mistakes on special teams. But when you have mistakes on special teams, you lose football games, or you're more likely to lose football games. And I think having someone like Jakeem Grant he gives you that extra big play that you don't get on either side of the ball, offensively or defensively. That special teams player that can start you off in great field position. Hell, even catching a punt or a kick is become a problem for the Browns. Rather than, getting a 5-yard gain, it's maybe losing 5 yards or even the possession. Yep. And that is something that the Browns have really struggled with over the last couple of years. But now they can feel a little bit better with now that they have, one of the game's best on special teams. I think he's definitely going to be a sleeper addition on the offensive side of the ball where they could do a lot more with him. I'm really looking forward to see that. And then the last free agent signing in Jacoby Brissett follows the trade of Case Keenum. Was honestly kind of unexpected when the Browns opted to pay his on-roster bonus. Then he was immediately traded to Buffalo the next day for a 7th rounder. So the Browns bring in Brissett. He played in Miami last year. I would say definitely one of the game's better backup quarterbacks. Looked really good with the Colts, and I think he played some solid ball with Miami. Had to sit about halfway to the season with a leg injury, and then they just kind of turned it over to Tua. Brissett is someone that can play a long span of time for you. And ideally, we all know what's coming. is the Deshaun Watson suspension. So I think this is a very big heads up move by the Browns where, if this suspension happens, they're ready to go and they got a quarterback that they can trust that win
Yeah.
games for.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? Where like I don't think Andrew Berry and Stefanski really looked at like uh, Case Keenum as a guy that you can rely on or even win you games long term, and I think that's why we had such a big issue this past year. And I think it's a clear upgrade in my opinion. Jacoby Brissett over Case Keenum. Um,
Definitely.
he's got a nice arm to him. He's definitely can throw the ball downfield, which is going to be really nice and helpful. And he's won quite a bit of games with. I mean, he's not been the highlight of most of them, but you can see. I mean, he's a solid quarterback. He's not the most mobile quarterback, but he said he's got an arm. He sits in the pocket pretty relaxed, and I think it's a big upgrade, not just from like the Case Keenum, but it's also just a big upgrade when it comes to having that guy that's going to be able to play maybe 6 to 8 games this year. That I think feel pretty confident in winning you games. And on top of Case Keenum, we saved I think $7 or $8 million on the cap, and Jacoby came in at $4.5 million. So when you look at like, okay, you're getting an upgrade and you're saving about $3 to $4 million. That's when the business part comes in, right? And I think a lot of people don't understand the business part of the NFL, where Case Keenum seemed like a really nice guy, and I think you run into this quite often. But at the end of the day, $3 million is $3 million. That's a lot of money. So you get an upgrade and you get to save some money, and it's a win-win for the Browns. And I think it's a great move.
Right. I think it fits in perfectly. Case Keenum definitely fit well into what the Browns are trying to do offensively, but I think there is a question that is to be raised with the addition of Deshaun Watson was the offense that we ran over the past 2 years truly the offense that Stefanski wanted to run? Whether it was Baker limiting the offense of what they can do, that's definitely an interesting question. But I think Brissett and Watson are more similar than a Keenum Watson quarterback room, where they're two different styles of play. And I think if not having Watson there is not, it's definitely a talent drop off, but you're getting a similar style of play where Brissett can make the big throws. He can take hits. He can, make plays with his legs, which, is certainly something that Watson is really known for.
I feel like they made out pretty good.
It's going to be really
for what
big.
They gave up. I was expecting
for
a lot
that time
more.
span. They might go without
the final
QB1.
details of the trade are
to start to other additions that come via trade. So we got 3 free agency signings and 3 trades. The mostly known Deshaun Watson. They gave up multiple picks for him. They're bringing a great quarterback. That it's a great move on a football aspect. But you're going to definitely go some time without him. So, everybody hang on for dear life. Second move, which was definitely a small move, but I think it's kind of an upgrade. They trade linebacker Mac Wilson to the New England Patriots for defensive end Chase Winovich. The Browns free up about $3.5 million on their cap.
I love this move.
Yeah, I love it because Mac Wilson kind of fell out of the rotation once Koromoa was introduced to the starting lineup.
Yeah. And even when he did play, he was not anywhere near that a starting quality or even a rotational piece. So getting rid of him, saving some money, and bringing a guy into a position that we desperately need, dude, I'm all about it.
Yeah, and Winovich was in the same position where, with the addition of Matthew Judon and bringing back Kyle Van Noy, he kind of found his way out of the rotation there at the edge rusher position where he didn't have many opportunities to show himself. But in the season that he did play, I mean, 4.5 sacks.
Yep.
That's pretty solid for a guy that is just a rotational piece. This is what you want.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, he's played 3 years, I believe, and he's had, I think he had 4.5, and I think 5.5 another year, and yeah, he's definitely a rotational piece. He could be great, and we need that Tack McKinley role filled. I mean, he's not going to probably play this year with a torn Achilles, so I think it's a great piece to just kind of plug and play and get the same kind of production you got with Tack.
Right, and then honestly, I think this is probably the best move the Browns made all offseason. The trade for Amari Cooper.
Dude, looking back at this one, it's an absolute steal. It's a steal.
It's a waxing. I mean, let's pump the brakes, Browns fans. Let's not fall in our old ways where
we've got good receivers that don't pan out.
Yeah, but that last good receiver you gave up an arm and a leg for. Amari Cooper has proven to be a top 10 receiver in the league. His biggest problem is staying on the field.
Yep.
And when you're making $20 million a season and you're not able to play a full season every year, that becomes a problem. And that's why Dallas, it wasn't that he wasn't producing when he was on the field.
Yeah.
It was more of him being hurt. And I think this is a big move. So if he can stay healthy, it's a different ball game.
Yeah.
And the Browns did a very smart thing. They bring in a number one receiver that they need. And for what they gave up, a spot, a 6th-round pick, so you move back 10 spots.
Yeah.
And then you give a 5th-rounder.
I mean, a 5th-rounder for Amari Cooper. I mean, and $20 million in today's NFL is like nothing. I mean, think Christian Kirk he's getting $18 million a year. So like, you're thinking $2 million from. Would you rather spend $2 more million and get Amari Cooper? Hands down, all day. But like a lot of these other guys, I mean, think about Devontae Adams getting damn near 30. A lot of these other guys getting mid to high 20s. So Amari Cooper, $20 million. Yeah,
this tells you a lot. They were able. I think the smart move about this was that they went and got a number one receiver when they have the opportunity. They gave up the 5th-round pick to guarantee that he's on our roster, for the next 3 years, and they went and restructured his contract, which frees up a lot of cap space to bring back players.
Frees up $15 million.
Frees up $15 million this year. We'll get to why it's a great move later on in this video. But I think it's a great pickup. You get a great route runner with the addition of a new quarterback. It definitely makes it a lot more interesting here. Now we'll move over to the re-signings. One I was a little surprised by, and the other one not so much. The one that I wasn't really surprised by was bringing back Anthony Walker. I see him having a better year this year. 1 year in the system. 1 year in the system. The same team is around him. Had a down year last year, but still led the team in tackles. I think he really started to pick it up at the second half of the season, which, it's a good sign for the upcoming season. I still think they need to upgrade at the Mike position.
I honestly would have liked to not resign him and said get rid of Wilson and then bring in Bobby Wagner. But that's just me. I think that would have been a way better pickup, and I think that room would have been awesome with JOK and Wagner would have been unstoppable. Yeah. But whatever.
Yeah, it's a very tense time with when it comes to salary, because next year we are going to be in the hole.
Yeah, and so, the year that you need to re-sign Denzel Ward or let him walk.
All right. And then the other one that was kind of surprising, but I'm very happy about, is bringing back offensive lineman Chris Hubbard.
Love that one.
missed all last season with an injury. The year before, he was a backup, and I think he played outstanding for a guy that did not have one position the whole entire season. He
plays every position. You need a
he
tackle, you need a guard, he'll jump in anywhere.
he really impressed that in 2020. They dearly missed him this past season, where they needed someone rather than have Blake Hance. You're not going to your 7th or 8th lineman. I think of it more. I think of an offensive line or defensive line, but an offensive line in this instance as like a basketball lineup. You have your starting 5, of course, but then you need a solid 3 or 4 guys off the bench to pick up the game if there's an injury or someone needs to get switched out. And I think this is where having Chris Hubbard, say we didn't need him for the 8 games that Jack Conklin was out, I think we might have had a different conversation about our offensive line this past season. I think it's a big difference. No shots at Blake Hance. I think he did an outstanding job for what the situation was. A guy that's gone from playing 1 game to playing nearly 10 plus. That's a lot, but it's the NFL, and that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
But, we'll start, and then we'll finish up here with, I think the more depressing part of the video is the departures. The one we all know about is Jarvis Landry. We had to free up $14 million on our cap space, which was they needed to do it. It was very unfortunate. But there's an opportunity that he comes back with the $15 million that was freed up by the reconstruction of Amari Cooper's contract. J.C. Treader, he was released. Not that, I think midweek last week. He frees up $8 million. I think this one I saw coming a little more because you spend a pick on a center about 2 years ago on Nick Harris.
Yep.
Has definitely been more than serviceable when he is given the opportunity. The Browns are very high on Nick Harris. That's definitely been the word on the street, reported by Daryl Ryder and Mary Kay Cabot. You go back and watch the film from the Green Bay game on Christmas. Nick Harris was making plays that, a veteran player makes. And I think this makes a lot more sense where, J.C. Treader is a guy that you can rely on. But when it comes to the business part of the game, you have to make a move like this to free up money. This is the do or die season for the Browns where they got to free up money.
And like the big thing is though, like you said, like 2 years ago they drafted him knowing full well that in 2 years, because typically it is said about 2 to 4 years between you throw that guy in, that after you sit and kind of like build to be actually your starting lineman as a rotational piece. Then now, let's say in year 3 or 4, you become that guy, and it's that time. It's his 3rd year, and you look at like James Hudson. Next year, he's probably like Jack Conklin's probably gonna get cut, and Hudson's gonna jump in there, and he's gonna be the starter. It's just how teams do it.
Very likely. Conklin's got a big contract. And Hudson's that's probably gonna be the most likely move. But
why else would you draft them, right?
Right.
It's a smart business strategy, basically based on like, okay, like we're gonna sit these guys, we're gonna have a big contract, and then that's how you stay under the cap. That's how you get good players. Unfortunately, for 3 to 4, 5 years at most, but then you then cut them, save a bunch of money, and then you have a guy that you've been sitting for 2 to 3 years, and then he's ready to go. It's what you got to do when you're a good team.
Right. And just to go off this, I wouldn't be surprised if they go offensive lineman in the 2nd round. Mostly because of that reason. You got big contracts across that line. If Hudson doesn't pan out, or they need Jed Wills to move over to right, or he's just not the
what she's used to as well. They moved him over to the left when they drafted him.
Right. I'd truly like to see Hudson move over to the left side and keep Jedrick Wills over there move Jedrick to the right. I just prefer more size at the left tackle, but I wouldn't say sleep on an offensive lineman in the second round.
Another big thing, I think, if I'm gonna jump in just real quick, just talking about signings, and obviously and signings as well as re-signings and the franchise tag in David Njoku is $11 million this year, and after we after we also cut Austin Hooper, freeing up about $8 million this year, you also got to think.
Can I go back on what I said was the Browns' best move of the offseason?
You can, but just 1 second. With Austin Hooper being cut, and this is before even Austin or David Njoku was franchise tagged before we cut Austin Hooper. Now, franchise tag is quite a bit of money. It's $11 million per year. Now, if you're thinking, all right, Njoku is our long-term guy now, wouldn't you rather give him a contract, say 3 years, $25 million, or even a little bit less? But you're gonna pay a guy, right? But a franchise tag is a franchise tag. I'd rather pay him even if we saved $1 million. Say we pay him 10 this year, that's cool with me. But I'd rather sign Emmanuel Sanders over bringing Jarvis back. And call me crazy, but I don't want to pay Jarvis $15 million. I'd rather lock up Denzel Ward with a long-term contract and bring in a guy I can bring in for $5 million. And restructure that. Have David Njoku more than just a franchise tag, and just turn that into a 3-year contract.
Right. It's definitely an interesting point. I do agree that they should extend Njoku and Denzel Ward and just take care of that, where they've been kind of on top of the game for the Browns. But I think you made an interesting point about Jarvis, where you wouldn't really want to bring him back from the 15 mil.
He wants 20, man. He wants 20 mil.
I hard time believe the 20 mil. There was reports that rumor was correct. I don't know how much of that is true.
Well, he didn't want to renegotiate his contract with us before we cut him, and he was getting 15 or 16 this year. If he didn't want to do that, I understand it, but man, I love Jarvis, but the most I'd pay for him is, I'd say at most I'd probably say 9 to 10.
I don't think he's gonna get 15.
No.
I don't think he's that naive at this point of his career. He's going to be 30, coming off an injured season, very underwhelming. Granted, you can't put up great numbers when you spend most of the season hurt. That's not really his fault. A guy who's on the field all the time, but with mediocre quarterback play. Notice I took a pause when I said that. But I if he comes back to the Browns, I expect it to be on a cheaper deal.
Yeah.
In fact, anywhere he goes, I think it's going to be on a cheaper deal. I don't think
he's going to.
Any more than 12, I truly don't believe he's going to get anything more than that.
Yeah, but also think that we are hopefully going to be able to make a trade for with Baker Mayfield, and mind you, of his $18 million 5th-year option that we picked up, we have to pay him. We're not gonna at best. I really hope we don't cut him, just because we would have to eat the entire $18 million. I'd like to do a trade. Hopefully we'd be able to do a trade. We might have to eat 10 million, but we'd still save 8 to 9 million. So that frees up another big chunk of money that we can pay some guys. And Speaking of a guy that we need to bring back is Jadeveon Clowney, which still has not gotten back to us after we offered the 2 years, $24 million. But
Right.
we made some good moves. We still have a lot of cap, so
Two more guys I just want to point out. I would say I'm kind of upset that they weren't able to retain these guys. And I mean, one of them, I don't think you really had a choice to keep him. And that being Rashard Higgins. Went over and signed a contract with the Carolina Panthers. Very unfortunate, fan favorite. I know personally he is our favorite player on the Browns. And, wish him the best of luck. He had a very down year last year. Didn't get many opportunities, I would say. Kind of sucks. But I think he'll be a solid addition for the Carolina Panthers. And then the other one is MJ Stewart, I think played a lot of big time snaps for the Browns as like a backup or just being a slot corner or even
came in clutch, man. Yeah.
Coming over in the safety position. And he signed a deal with the Houston Texans. But where we stand at the moment is kind of where we stand for, before the offseason even started, is with our positional needs kind of are the same. We need a receiver. I would think so, more of a slot kind of guy. Or then we can go over to defensive tackle. I think that's definitely a huge need for this team. An edge rusher, more rotational pass rush. I want to be 4 or 5 guys deep on the edge, not 3.
But a big thing that I would say, though, is I think even looking back a couple weeks, I think this team is much better currently as we sit. Even if Deshaun sits half a season, I think this team is still better than what we had prior. And I think Jacoby Brissett is a better backup. I think Deshaun Watson's a better starting quarterback. I think David Njoku is a better tight end. And you can keep, list goes on and on. I said, I think Amari Cooper is a better number 1 because we didn't have a number 1. And I think DPJ is going to step up into that, that number 2 role real nicely. He's not a number 1, but I think he's a really solid number 2. And I think, we've made great moves. We have a bunch of cap still that we can still spend and bring people in. And said we're starting the second wave of free agency. There's just still a lot of guys: Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, Will Fuller. A lot of these guys are probably going to be looking for like a one year deal that you can get them pretty cheap. And I'd love to have Emmanuel Sanders personally. He's sneaky. He gets around the field, and you're like, oh, he's wide open. I don't know how he does it, but I think he's real solid, and I think he'd be a really nice number 3. And also, I think he can kind of just help out as a rotational receiver, and you don't need him all the time, but starting free agency, the second round, a lot of great guys. I think we're gonna make a lot of signings here pretty soon, the next week or so.
Yeah. I would like to say, to just fill off some of these positional needs, I think the smaller moves are really where it's at. I think they upgraded in the very smaller positions. You had a 3rd or 4th guy there in Chase Winovich, a third or 4 in Taven Bryan, Jakeem Grant in your receiving core. These are all rotational guys that they're going to see the field. And I think that there's more depth at the positions that right there now. Bringing back Chris Hubbard, that's more depth at the offensive line. I think that's huge. I think they need to add another tight end now that they're down to 2, whether that's in the draft. They did take a look at Jalen Windemeyer from Texas A&M, big time playmaker, a lot of speed on him. At 6'6", definitely got to keep an eye on. I would say this: if the Browns were able to get their hands on him, I would be super excited, because this is a guy that torched the Alabama defense for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns.
And we also don't have a really speedy tight end.
Right.
Like, at all.
Both
our guys are big.
Not a great route runner, not great at blocking, but if you need a guy to go out there, make some plays in the secondary, I think this is your guy.
But he could be.
Right. And then I would say depth in the secondary. You know, I don't want to cover the draft, but I'm just going to make one line about it is don't be surprised if they make a draft a player at a position you would not expect in the second round. If your heart is set on receiver, defensive end, don't be surprised if they go safety or center at pick 44. Just throwing that out there. But to hop right back into the free agents that kind of remain, you know, I think the 2 guys that are obvious, I think you bring back, and I think they fit perfect on the team, mostly because they were on the team, is Jarvis and Clowney. If you can, I think Jadeveon Clowney's contract that was up the 2-year, $24 million. I think that's a perfect deal for him. It's a semi-cheap deal. I think it's the best deal he's going to get. He's taking his time to mull over his offers, but I think more likely he's going to come back. You know, I think it was just too good for him to leave. He had a great season last year, 9 sacks, best he's had since, you know, his second season. Jarvis, you know, it's hard to turn down a top 5 quarterback that's asking you to come back. If Baker was still at quarterback, I think it's a different conversation. You know, if there was bad blood between them. I mean, if Odell's openly saying he's willing to come back because Deshaun Watson's there, that really, really changes the conversation. You know, when we talk about Baker and the receiving core.
Oh yeah, I mean it tells you everything, right? It's like, oh, if he literally left because of this guy, and then he's like, yeah, I'd come back after he's gone. That tells you everything. And on top of, if you look at Baker, no one's biting. That tells you everything. But I honestly, I don't want OBJ back. I'd rather have Amari Cooper, and I don't want this room to get too crowded because I do think DPJ needs some time and some to really flourish, and I really want him to do that. So I think having DPJ to kind of like grow into the role is very needed. I think this year is going to help out a lot.
I think they're going to bring in 2 more receivers that want at least one being a signing, and the other one being in the draft.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Whether it's Jarvis or Will Fuller, or
I don't want Fuller.
I honestly would love Fuller because he's a deep ball threat. He's got a lot of speed, great connection with Deshaun Watson. If you go back and look at 2020 and 2019, they were really an unstoppable duo.
Very. Yeah.
It's hard.
I'm with you on that.
It's hard to stop a quarterback with legs, but it's hard to stop a receiver that can burn you downfield on a broken play.
Yeah, and as much as we know, quarterback and receiver need to have some type of chemistry.
Right. You know, this is kind of the same deal with Higgins, but Will Fuller's light years ahead of Higgins.
Yes.
As much as I like saying that, but you know, touchdowns count. Staying on the field counts. But that being said, looking at the defensive side of the ball of what we got left, I think there's, you know, I would say there's 2 former Browns that I think they should take a look at. And there's a point I'd like to make where there needs a little more depth in the secondary. I think the Browns could take a look at, you know, former corner Joe Hayden. You know, I think adding a veteran presence in that secondary would be very nice to pair with, you know, Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome and Troy Hill. I think that'd be a great combination there. You know, he's played solid ball with the Steelers. And then a safety and Jabril Peppers.
That'd be nice. We missed him a lot.
The Browns letting Ronnie Harrison walk. If they are still up to playing that 3 safety set where they move the safety into the box, I think Jabril Peppers fits that very well. I think he would just pop right into where Ronnie Harrison was. Definitely more of a playmaker than Ronnie was, more of a tackler than Ronnie was. I think that would be a great pickup for them. And then one player that they were rumored to take a look at, and I think this would be a grand slam if they were able to bring him in, is Akeem Hicks, defensive tackle, nose tackle from Chicago. Been in the Pro Bowl a couple times, big time playmaker, run stuffer, kind of make his own plays in the pass rush. I'd feel a lot comfortable if they were able to bring a guy in, but at what cost is the question. Is he going to be able to fit into a 4-3 where he's more playing a 3-4 playing in the 3-4 like they did in Chicago? I don't know. And then one final player on the offensive side of the ball, and we can wrap this one up. I said the tight end position probably needed a little more of an upgrade with the 2 guys there. And I think you bring in a very seasoned veteran who's very productive, could kind of be a little everything's played in every system. You want to take a guess what I'm going to say?
Yeah, Jared Cook.
Absolutely. I think if they were able to snag Jared Cook, it'd be a steal. You get a pass catcher, vertical threat, pass blocker, run blocker.
And you said he's a veteran, man. I think he could really just help out someone like Harrison Bryant that's kind of in need and a similar kind of guy. So you need some type of coaching, I feel, some insight of just an older tight end, I think would really help him out as well. And is that you kind of need 3 tight ends in the system that Stefanski runs. So I love it. I hope they do it.
All right. Well, that being said, this wraps up our first wave of the Browns free agency, about 2 weeks in. It's definitely been interesting, but also very boring at the same time. For the Browns, it's been very quiet for about a week since the last move was Jacoby Brissett, and that was last Saturday. They introduced Deshaun Watson this week on Friday. But other than that, it's been very quiet when it comes to additions and subtractions. But I'm sure we'll see a little closer to the draft or within the next couple of weeks. But that being said, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, share, do your thing, and most of all, go Browns.